In the spring of 2004, Mark Zuckerberg used private login data from his site, thefacebook.com, to hack into 2 email accounts of writers at the Harvard Crimson, Harvard University's undergraduate newspaper. Zuckerberg did this in order to see private communications regarding an article which detailed ConnectU's claims that thefacebook.com stole their website's idea. ConnectU, founded by Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss, was the social media site that Zuckerberg was originally tasked to develop before thefacebook.com was launched. The Crimson article, published in May of 2004, was titled Online Facebook's Duel Over Tangled Web of Authorship, and pits the Winklevoss twins' accusations against Zuckerberg and effectively details how Zuckerberg misled the Winklevoss twins for months and stole their idea for ConnectU, known at the time as Harvard Connect, before Zuckerberg ended up creating his own version of the site, which its 2.93 billion monthly active users now know as Facebook. Made common knowledge by Ben Mesrick's 2009 book, The Accidental Billionaires, and its 2010 film adaptation, The Social Network, a biographical drama film directed by David Fincher, Mark Zuckerberg, as Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss claimed, had stolen the idea for the Facebook while he was supposed to be developing ConnectU. But none of this is out of the ordinary for Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook and other big tech companies. The music you hear playing is directly from Fincher's The Social Network, and is a piece written by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross called Hand Covers Bruises, a title alluding to Facebook's endless and largely unsuccessful attempts to cover up and refute claims criticizing the company's unethical practices. These practices include, but are not limited to, anti-competitive behaviors, poaching of user data, rampant misinformation, countless privacy violations, and a history of colluding with both the US and foreign governments, government officials, and politicians who are interested in using the site to sway political opinion. In 2018, public opinion reached a boiling point when the Facebook Cambridge Analytica data scandal broke news after former Cambridge Analytica employee Christopher Wiley came forward and disclosed Facebook's misuse of millions of users' personal data. Founded in 2013, Cambridge Analytica was a British political consulting firm and subsidiary of Strategic Communication Laboratories, also known as SCL Group, a behavioral research and strategic communications company most infamous for its psychological warfare operations contracting for the US and British governments during the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. Prior to the scandal, Cambridge Analytica had ties with the UK Conservative Party, the British royal family, and both the US and British military. In 2014, their CEO, Alexander Nix, also claimed they were involved in 44 US political races that year, of them the most notable being Ted Cruz's campaign and their $750,000 payment to the data analytics company for what they said were, quote, web services for donor modeling. Christopher Wiley, the original whistleblower for the Facebook Cambridge Analytica data scandal, publicized a number of documents detailing how the firm was able to harvest nearly 87 million user profiles from Facebook's Open Graph platform around 2014 and 2015. This data would then eventually go on to assist Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign by means of political analysis and voter psychology operations. All of this culminated into greater public concern about privacy, the power of big tech, and Western democracy's newfound vulnerability to disinformation through data poaching. Published in 2019, a non-fiction book by Shoshana Zuboff entitled The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, The Fight for a Human Future at the New Frontier of Power, explores the rise of big tech companies like Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google in a new business model which she describes as surveillance capitalism. In part 1 of chapter 3, Shoshana Zuboff analyzes Google as the starting point for the birth of surveillance capitalism. Started in 1998 by Sergey Brin and Larry Page, Google initially had an equilibrium with its users. Its users needed their service, and they needed their users. However, as venture capitalist money piled into the company, the demand for growing profits increased and ultimately led Google to start analyzing user behavioral data to create targeted ads, thereby making their main customers advertisement agencies instead of users. Later in Chapter 5, Zuboff writes about Google CEO Eric Schmidt's relationship with Obama and the Obama campaign in 2008, utilizing sites like Google and Facebook in winning the election. On page 121, Zuboff provides a quote from one of Obama's consultants saying, "We knew who people were going to vote for before they even decided." Predating anything that Cambridge Analytica offered to the Trump campaign, Obama's campaign 8 years earlier was also able to successfully wield data poaching and targeted ads to buy an election. Following the book's publishing, a Harvard Gazette article entitled "High Tech is Watching You" organizes an interview with Zuboff in which he says the following, quote, "I define surveillance capitalism as the unilateral claiming of private human experience as free raw material for translation into behavioral data." She later goes on to mention that following Google's invention of surveillance capitalism, the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center caused the US government to enact a state of total information awareness, discarding all privacy laws that were previously in motion. Taking advantage of the tragedy, today we see that both governments and private companies use the claim of safety as the reasoning behind their poaching of user data on all levels. To once more quote Zuboff from the Harvard Gazette article, she says, "Their knowledge extends far beyond the compilation of the information we gave them. It's the knowledge that they have produced from that information that constitutes their competitive advantage, and they will never give that up. These knowledge asymmetries introduce wholly new axes of social inequality and injustice. Though very rarely do people understand the true extent to which information is being poached." A 2014 documentary film entitled Citizen 4, directed by Laura Poitras, explores Edward Snowden and his role in the NSA spying scandal. Snowden, an ex-NSA contractor who'd previously worked with Booz Allen Hamilton, not only obtained documents regarding the NSA's spying, but also obtained documents from Australia, the UK, Canada, and New Zealand intelligence groups through the exclusive Five Eyes network. Following the realization that the NSA was collecting phone records for tens of millions of Americans, and the UK spy agency was able to collect 600 million communications every day through fiber optic cables, Snowden leaked the information and fled to Russia, being labeled a defector and a traitor by the US government. Though it's still hard to say what all of this means for the future of our democracy, between both governments and private corporations poaching the data that is now freely available to them as a resource. To quote Mark Andreessen, the founder of venture capitalist firm Andreessen Horowitz, "Software is eating the world." For both better and worse, the ease of access granted by tools like Google, YouTube, Instagram, and Uber have made it extraordinarily easy to go about our day-to-day lives. Though none of this comes without a price. We, as users, have become commodified. And in this commodification, and in this new wielded power discrepancy, private corporations like Facebook and Google, and governments like the United States or the UK, are able to take information that they know about us to dictate our very actions, our very movements, our very opinions. No longer are elections democratic when votes can be bought and our opinions can be manipulated. No longer are our thoughts private when any purchase we make, any link we click, any search we make is sold as commodity. No longer are we, as citizens, able to wield any true power in the United States or any portion of the world in our new era of surveillance capitalism.